Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Danni McCormack, who just defended, or retained, I should say, not defended, retained her Invicta Strawweight title last Friday with a 4th-round submission win over Karolina Wójcik over in Boston. Huge event, huge occasion, huge win. Danni, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'll have to get the 2 belts out now.
Get him out, get him out. I love it.
So that's the new one. It's like really shiny. And then the old one I used to think was impressive, but it's definitely not as shiny.
Oh
This
my
one
goodness.
this one is golder.
I love it. So that's cool. You actually get a new belt for every defense then from Invicta, yeah?
I know, it's great. I wasn't sure. But I didn't bring my old one just in case. And then that was the way I was making sure I was getting a second one.
That's smart thinking, Danny. That is smart thinking.
They're
I
not
love
going to
it.
come home to Ireland and get it off me, so
That's it. No, they'll have to fight tooth and nail to get in at you at Mullingar there now, or into Relentless to get those titles. It was brilliant. Because we were chatting, Danny, right before. It was about maybe a month or 6 weeks before the fight itself, and you were talking about the championship mentality that you had, that you were bringing into your camp. Obviously that continued throughout camp, and you showcased that ability and the type of camp that you did have when the fight actually happened. You said it was your best performance to date. It was, in my opinion, your best performance to date as well. How much did it help, the extra bit of confidence? You said that, like, after the fight, the title almost gives you a little bit of a secret power heading into camp and heading into those fights. Did you really feel that throughout the camp? And obviously you felt it through the fight as well.
yeah, definitely. Like for most fights until like that fight, I was definitely like hopeful that I would win, and I thought like all going well, this could go well. But I never like was fully sure. Whereas this camp was a bit different after I became the champion. I just finally like started to kind of embody it and think, yeah, like this 100% is going to go well, and I would have to really mess up or do something stupid to lose. That like I really backed myself in this fight, and I felt it. I didn't go into fight week thinking, oh, I hope. It wasn't I hope. It was I know, and I know I can do this. Like I really believe in my skills, and yes, it's a fight and anything can happen, but it wasn't. The hope was gone. It was no longer kind of hoping and wishing. It was more just knowing that I have it in me, and yeah, I feel like I finally got to show that on Friday night.
Was there a moment in camp where like something clicked with you mentally like that, or was it something that you were kind of festering ever since the win and then bringing that into camp? Or like, obviously there's lots of trials and tribulations that you'll go through your camps and ups and downs and everything like that, but to kind of manifest that confidence, was there a particular moment in camp or anything like that, or is it just naturally happen?
Like 9 weeks before the fight, or like 8.5 weeks before the fight, something like that. I got my nose split open, so like I have like a scar now on the bridge of my nose. You probably can't even see it, and with a spinning back elbow, and I got stitches, and it was like totally open. The cut was, and I couldn't spar then for I don't know, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And all during that time when I had the stitches, I was thinking, oh, I just can't wait to spar. I can't wait. And that was probably the best thing that happened to me, because it kind of pulled me back for those few weeks. And when I got a head guard on and we put on big gloves, and I got into a spar the first day, like I booked a 25-minute spar, my first spar back after not doing anything. And
Jesus.
on a Monday morning as well. And John met me in the cage, and Alan was there, and he was like, 25 minutes, yeah. He's like, no messing around here. And I was like, nope. But anyway, after 3 rounds, the two boys pulled it, of course, fuckers. So I was only
They-
I was only allowed to do three, and they had to like wrestle me out of the cage to stop me from doing the next two. So that was annoying. But from that day forward, once I got in there, because I'd been looking forward to it like for weeks, I couldn't wait to spar. Them spars were just the best ever. I just went in feeling unstoppable, and I sparred like that, and I just had no fear, no doubt whatsoever. And this 25-minute thing is like amazing. It's so much fun, and I relish it. Whereas last camp I was nervous, I wasn't used to it. Now this camp I just couldn't wait. The more 25-minute trainings I could do, the better. The more 5-5s I could do, the better. So yeah, I think it was getting in sparring after being out for a few weeks. I think I really set in that like I'm so ready for this, and I'm going to win this fight.
Yeah, and you didn't need the 25 minutes on the actual fight as well. So the sparring must have done you really, really good, Danny. Over in Boston, how did it feel? Like, this was a unique event, and you kind of highlighted that, Shannon Knapp made this event happen for you, and there's real kind of different feel in the air for it, a different build up for it, and they really kind of leaned into the Boston event and your Irishness, and you had the costumes before, which were brilliant. I never forget seeing those pictures, yourself and Dee dressing up in the costumes was savage. It was brilliant to see. But you invested, you got the Irish gear set up and everything like that. And did it feel as big for you? Did it feel different for you in comparison to maybe previous kind of fights? Obviously, the first time you're going in to defend your title, it obviously can be a little bit different. But did you kind of get a different feeling in the air when you were kind of on the lead up to the fight over in Boston?
Yeah, I'm not sure, was it because it was Boston and because it was the whole Ireland thing and all that, or was it that I was in such a good headspace? But I like really, really enjoyed fight week. We arrived on Monday, and no one else was arriving till Wednesday, and we were dying for everyone to arrive. And then like my family started arriving on Wednesday, and so did all the other fighters. And it was just, it felt like a holiday. Like I remember one of my mindset coach said to me, Mindset Mike, what he said to me before, that like having a fight should be like the lead up to Christmas, like Christmas week, that every day, like if you have to put a Christmas tree up in your house, do, to remind you that like the fight day is like Christmas Day. That's how excited you should be. And I never felt like that. So this was the first time. Every single day I couldn't wait. It was getting closer, and they told us that you should dress up for Halloween. They were egging us on to do that, and supposedly everyone was doing it. And sure, me and Dee like says, right, we're definitely not going to be the only ones not doing it. And in the end, only 4 people did it. But even dressing up and having my family there with me doing that, that was great crack. And it was just one thing after another. It was not so much worrying or stressing about training or the fight or anything like that, because at that stage everything is done. And I suppose in Bellator fight weeks I'd be doing 2 training sessions a day, and I'd be checking my clock like to make sure we're not missing anything that we're supposed to be doing, and I'd be constantly tidying the bedroom in the hotel, and I'd be so wound up. But that week it was just like really being on holiday. It really was. It was class. Like it was really, really enjoyable. So much so that I even thought on fight day, God, I hope I haven't enjoyed myself so much that I've dropped the ball here, because I actually have just really enjoyed myself. But obviously that attitude turned out to be a good performance. So I think I'm going to try and do that going forward. Maybe
Yeah,
wear the costume every time.
that's it. Just come out wearing the costume every time. It'd be savage. But look, you talked obviously about your work the last time out with Mindset Mike, and treating your fight like Christmas Day. Coming in here, obviously having those distractions are going to be beneficial to you as well. But was there anything in particular that you were working on from a mental point of view? The fact that you've kind of always had to work towards the goal to be a world champion, and now then you got there. And we hear a lot of fighters like saying that they get there, and then they're having to overcome more hurdles now that they've knocked down some of the goals that they achieved. What kind of was the mindset training that you were doing ahead of this fight, Danny?
Yeah, like I know some people, when like you achieve a goal, that sometimes you take the foot off the pedal or whatever, that it's hard to get motivated after. And like March was the best thing that ever happened to me ever. You know, as great as last Friday was, I'll still never get the high I got from March on my birthday. But for me, no one ever has to convince me to train hard or try hard ever. Like, that's a part of me, and I'm always going to go in and fight my best and try hard and push. So I wasn't afraid about that kind of side of it. But one thing I did know from March, and I knew from all of my fights, was that I rarely felt like I was in flow in the fights, and like totally in the moment. And I remember so much about being in the fights, and I think by remembering things, it means I must have been really stressed during those times, because I can remember every single detail of what was happening. But that means I'm concentrating on what's around me and not actually just fighting. So I had a huge goal to try and like just turn off the internal dialogue in my head and just flow and fight from one sequence to the next sequence, and grapple and strike, and not force anything, and just try and perform, because I can do that sparring in the gym, but I've never been able to do it in the cage. So that was a huge motivator for me in this fight. That was my motivator, was to quieten my head and flow and perform, and be able to get to a point where stress, nerves, anxiety is so low that everything else, all the magic can happen. So, you know, it was a hell of a lot of work to get to that place. It really was. And even warming up and walking out, there's a lot of self-talk going on in your head, and then all it takes is something bad to happen in the first few seconds of the fight, and then that could go all out the window. So I really nailed it for this fight, and I hope going forward that this is going to be what's going to happen, that I'm going to keep this, because I still think I was only in third gear on Friday night, but my head was like 100% with me, not against me. So I think physically I can bring the gears up a little bit now that I have my head working with me.
Yeah, that must give you a great deal of confidence as well. And that's one thing that we were kind of talking, myself and Shawnee and the lads in the group, we were saying the fact that you're still going in there and you're leveling up at this stage of your career as well is pretty cool to see. And like you're saying, there's plenty more to come. Maybe talk about that in a little bit. I'd love to talk about the fight itself. When you're envisioning the fight, did you kind of envision it going that way? Obviously, you kind of were hoping for an early stoppage, but the stoppage came eventually. I mean, a stoppage is a stoppage, no matter where it comes, in my opinion. When you were kind of going through the fight in your head, did you kind of envision that way? We discussed fight tactics. Gladly, you didn't listen to anything that I had to say when you went in there, but you know, you seemed like you were almost in control the entire fight. And like you said, you were only in third gear. It was like the flip switched in round 4, and you were just like, okay, I'm ready to be done with this fight now. And you ended up getting Karolina out of there with the rear naked choke. Did it go somewhat similar to the way you imagined it beforehand?
Well, Coach Ian O'Neill, I think we did a good job. We did a great job. We stayed long distance at the start. You know, we picked our shots, single shots, didn't walk into any backhands, did nothing silly. Moved off a bit, actually. I didn't think I'd move off. You said move off, and I actually did, which
Yeah.
is mad. So
Yeah.
you had more influence than you might think. So you did. And I remember I listened to Graham and Sean talking about the fight the weekend before, and Sean was saying, you know, she's really motivated to get a finish. And I heard Graham like stopping him dead in his tracks and be like, she shouldn't go away from who she is. She should do what she's always been doing, just in case. So that's exactly what I imagined. I imagined like 3 scenarios. One, I come out like a killer, like those you know, imagination thoughts you have when you're going to bed. You come out and you slaughter them in like 30 seconds. 2, that something bad happens and that I end up going through 25 minutes of like resilience. So you know, fighting back from adversity. And then the third thing was the fight will go the way most of my fights go. I'll be dominant, I'll be winning, and fingers crossed I don't let that happen for 25 minutes, because I don't want it to be anyways perceived as boring or that I'm not a finisher. So they were kind of like the 3 thoughts I had in my head. And I went into round one really wanting to be disciplined and not let crazy things happen. And I had in my head every round, okay, if there's an opportunity, finish. If there's an opportunity, finish. But I still was enjoying myself and, chilling and happy to go back to my corner, not tired at all. Like my spars were way harder than the fight. And when I came back to my corner after the second round, Alan was like, right, you want to finish your round this round. That's enough now. You've had enough, like, get this done. And I was like, okay. So then I got up and I was determined to take her down in the third round and make it happen. And that round, I probably got hit with more backhands than I did in the whole fight because I was thinking too much about how can I grab onto her now and put her on the floor. And I wasn't just flowing as much as I had been in round one or two.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back to my corner after that round and I still was confident that I was up, even though looking back at the fight now, I think the last 30 or 40 seconds of the third round might have meant that she got it because she landed more backhands
I'm glad you said that because I scored the fight live for Karolina at the time. I was like, oh God, I hope I'm right now or Danny is going to give out to me. But well, you would agree. It was like I think you were dealing with a certain set of circumstances, Danny, whereas that you were so dominant in round one and round two, and maybe you led down to the wanting to push for the finish a little bit too much. But on the other side of the stick, Karolina was down 2 rounds and she really had to come in and kind of push the action a little bit more because it simply wasn't working for her what she was trying to do. So it was a kind of a combination of both. I scored obviously rounds 1, rounds 2 easy for you. I did score round 3 for Karolina myself. Live, I watched it back and I kind of would describe it the same way as you did over the last couple of 30 seconds or so. There was a couple of backhands that did get off and it was still a close round, but I did lean towards Karolina. But I mean, you put that all to bed in round 4. It was like, I think trying to do in round... Go ahead.
I think in round 3, if I had like just kept going through my striking sequences and like instead of looking to make things happen, just like let things happen more and not like try to close the distance so much that I think I was and a part of me sits back and watches what the other person's doing a little bit too, and I thought, fair play to you, you've like actually upped it a bit. I thought you were bollocks, I thought you were gone, but you're back here looking at me. So I was kind of admiring that while I didn't feel any power behind any of those shots. They're still score. And so a bit of disrespect for her power and a bit of admiration for her in those moments that she was coming back to fight me. Again, probably not the smartest thing to do. Probably like the worst minute of the fight was the end of that third round. And then went back to my corner and Alan gave me a right bollocking then and says, right, that's it now. You're going to finish her. And I was like, okay. And then got up and just said, right, at any moment I'm going to get her. And then the minute she threw a backhand, I just shot round to the back and she went to go to the fence and I was like, no chance. I'm not letting you near that fucking fence again. And, made the adjustment to drag her out into the mat and in the open mat then it was pretty straightforward. I knew she was asleep before the guy picked up her hand because I felt her whole body was gone, but I didn't let go because sometimes people can wake up and keep fighting. So unfortunately I knew she was gone and your man was fucking sleeping, the ref, and I just had to keep squeezing. But I could definitely do that at the start of a fight too, but a part of me likes being in a fight. I'm still not like really experienced. Maybe if I have 10 more fights I'll be able to go in and like assassinate. But yeah, I kind of like being in 25-minute fights. I like to show off as many techniques and sequences, and I like fighting, and I like when it's hard. And so, yeah, being a finisher is probably harder for me than mentally because of those things that I actually like fighting. People that submit people or knock them out straight away early in round 1. Well, they must feel great, but like they didn't fight. I don't know.
Well,
So anyway,
the
I
more
hope Nick
cage time...
Maynard's not listening to this.
yeah. It's like more cage time that you can get for yourself is going to be more positive for you in certain regards. Obviously, it's nice to go in and get early finishes, but the more experiences you have, like, you can experience what you experience in training and in sparring, but not in matches when it's live action as well. So, getting in that time, getting the time under your belt is very beneficial. Do you think that your toughness is, you mentioned that like the title almost gives you a secret weapon. I almost think your toughness gives you a secret weapon, in that you know what you're capable of in obviously you don't want to take damage, but you know that you can take damage, you can give damage, but also your opponents know when they're going in to fight Danni McCormack, they're going to be in a war. It's not going to be easy. And she's not going to finish you early. She's going to want to beat you up before she finishes you or bring you 25 minutes.
Yeah, like, I really feel confident after that fight. And I thought about it like coming home on the plane. I was thinking like, okay, so say I get like this much better at striking and this much better at wrestling, this much better at jiu-jitsu, and I am like the level of the highest level girls in the world, like I'd be a fucking nightmare. Like they know I'm not gonna quit 100%. They're probably gonna knock me down or hurt me, and I'm still not gonna quit, and I'm not gonna get finished. And I have cardio for days, and I love hardship, and I love going the distance. So in a title fight, in a 25-minute championship fight, I'm the winner. Like I think always, once my skills can keep improving, and I like I really believe that now, that actually me being tough and having this endurance and the want to be in fights and the want to have hardship, it must mean that that is like my unique selling point, and that I can go very far with that. So I just need the skills to keep matching up with that. And I'm going to be 34 in March. I still have a few more years in me. So if I get a run at this, I could keep proving, very good girls wrong, like that they can't beat me. I can put a few more Brazilians to bed and whatever else. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Karolina wasn't the level of Valeska Machado, but like I bet Valeska Machado, and now I've beaten Karolina, who's fought in the Contender Series and won, and has won 11 fights by doing what she did the other night. And I was in third gear, so I think I really believe in myself. I really do. For the next few years, something great could happen.
Yeah, and do you know what? That kind of confidence accumulated, Danny, with the level of support that you were getting before, and especially after the fight as well, from a lot of the fans on Instagram. Connor was giving you a shout out and giving you your kudos. He shared your finish, which I believe now is being looked at by, I think, nearly 700,000 people have looked at your finish on our Instagram page and your Instagram page as
No
well.
way.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest videos you've gone. That finish went viral after Connor shared on. It
That's
must
great.
mean a great deal for you as well to get the support, obviously from the fans and everybody, family members, but especially from Connor as well, who shouted and wants you to get your shot in the UFC.
Yeah, like you can't help yourself but want people to think you're a good fighter. Like, like that's what you want. You don't like, I don't really care about being flashy or highlight reels or whatever, but I want people to regard me and think I'm a good fighter. It's definitely, and I suppose the people that you want, that is your peers, your family, your friends, and like your idols. And like Conor McGregor is one of my idols, and he regards me. He's seen me getting stopped like bloody a year and a half ago in the Three Arena, and I thought that'd break my heart for the rest of my life, that he was fucking watching that. But now, things have changed, and he still regarded me back then, but after Friday, I think he thinks I'm a good fighter, and that is something that I'm happy about, and I definitely appreciate.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant to see, and well deserved praise as well, Danny. What we have to talk about what's next, and what your mentality is after this fight. Recently listening to Alex Volkanovski, he kind of spoke a little bit about some of the downsides of after a fight and needing to have a fight to kind of keep himself going, and some terms, for lack of a better term, maybe post-fight depression. Is that something that you go through? Obviously, you're just less than a week out from your defense. You're probably still living off that high, but have you ever experienced that before? Obviously, after defeats, they're very tough to take. You have some tough times, but maybe, after these big wins as well, when the high kind of comes down a little bit, do you find yourself a little bit lost in any terms, or do you just kind of gear yourself up for the next goal?
Like, the best advice I'd have for anyone is don't get too high, because then you get low, so try not to get high or try not to get low. It's the morning after the fight, if you're lucky enough to sleep that night, you wake up and you instantly get ready to get up and go training and get ready for the fight, and you forget that the fight is over. And that kind of happens to me. Even this morning was the same thing. I woke up in my bed at home, and I thought I was going off training to prepare for the fight, and then I remembered the fight's over and I won. And for a minute, I'm happy that I won, but then straight away you're like down, and you're down because there's nothing to do. Like, what are you supposed to do now? You're on your week off where you're eating shite and you're visiting family or whatever, but like, that's not what fighters are about. And I think what I really resonated with what Volkanovski was saying. And when you're in camp and every hour of your day is planned and your brain is like full of endorphins, looking forward to something and trying to improve on this, that, and the other, there's goals all day long between like your diet and your cardio and your techniques and your mindset and your bedtime and your ice baths. There's goals all day long, and then it's over. And whether you won or not, um, I don't think anyone really enjoys this off time. You think you do, and you fill yourself full of donuts to make yourself think you do, but everyone wants to be back in camp, and that's what it is. I think it's just being in camp is the best place to be. It really is, especially if you're looking forward to the fight and your mindset is bulletproof at the time and you're not anxious about the fight. It is. So, I can't imagine the day where I'm not going to be in camp. I'm going to have to do something else, because it is just, it's your whole life being driven towards goals. So for me, what's next? There's going to be like two things for me now, and I said it to Alan today. I was like, there's two paths. Like, one, we get into the UFC, or two, I fight a third time as a champion for Invicta, and no one else has ever done that, or no other strawweight anyway has ever done it three times. So that's something to look forward to do that. And then obviously being in the UFC, I get to fight the best girls in the world. It's just something I'm really looking forward to. Apart from those two things, I don't see myself doing anything else. I don't see myself going anywhere else to any other promotions. So yeah, that's it for me. And Mick Maynard knows who I am, and they're aware of me, and they're aware of what happened on Friday night, and they haven't given an answer. And I don't want to spend the next 2 months looking at WhatsApp every 20 seconds to see, did I get a message from my manager? I want to let it go, and if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, we'll prepare for that third title fight in Invicta. But I am UFC worthy, I am UFC ready, and if I was 23 and not 33, I'd definitely be going for that third belt in Invicta. But I don't really have the time, and even though I keep improving and I keep getting better, I do eventually want to have kids, and unfortunately, Alan can't do that for me. I have to do that. So that's where I'm at. They're my options, and I have no control of what's going to happen.
Have you set yourself? I obviously believe you should be in the UFC now at this stage. I think you would be able to beat a lot of the talent in the strawweight division as well if you did enter into the UFC right now. Have you set yourself a deadline? You said you were kind of guilty of maybe relying on the call for the UFC a little bit too much after winning the title. Do you want to try and approach it a little bit differently, Danny, this time in terms of maybe setting yourself a deadline, and maybe when would you like to fight again?
Like, Invicta aren't going again until next March, so I presume they're going to be matching for that in December, I'd say. So like, we really just have November for me to wait around for, and then going into December, if I don't get matched for Invicta, that might mean that I don't even get on the March card, and then we're looking at like the middle of the summer. So, you know, in the next like 4 weeks, Nick, maybe I'm naive, but like if they want me, they want me, and if they don't, they don't. I shouldn't take longer than 4 weeks to figure that out. You know, the strawweight division isn't full. There's loads of room. You know, what's stopping them? And if I sign with Invicta to have another strawweight fight, you know, title fight, I feel really strongly that if I sign that contract and they make that happen, I'm not going to pull out of that fight for the UFC then. So, you know, I'd like to have integrity there and not, you know, screw them over. Shannon's done so much for me. You know, she gave me a big bloody Paddy's Day party last Friday night at the expense of the company. Like, you know, I'm sure they didn't make a lot of money on that show. If anything, I cost them a fortune. And so, yeah, let's give it the next few weeks and see what happens. You know, my manager's going to keep the pressure on, but like, I don't know. Maybe we should set up an OnlyFans page. What you thinking?
Maybe so, Danny. Yeah, maybe so. You never
Maybe you
know.
can give me some coaching advice on that too, can you?
No, I wouldn't know anything about that at all now, Danny. I wouldn't know anything at all about that. In terms of your contract situation, Danny, with Invicta right now, does your contract say increase each title defense that you have, or what way is it kind of structured with you being a champion of that promotion? Or like, is it a thing where you want to try and get yourself ready in case there maybe might be a last minute call for a fill in if someone has pulled out of a strawweight fight in the UFC? What kind of way are you thinking there? And if that was to happen, is it more difficult for you now that you're a champion to kind of just maybe pull away from Invicta and sign for the UFC, or what kind of is the structure of that relationship?
Yeah, it is like a double-edged sword. And I heard Graham saying which at the weekend about the Contender Series, but I'm not allowed to go to the Contender Series as a champion in Invicta. You know, Cage Warriors allowed their champions to go into the Contender Series, but Invicta won't. And I don't blame them because, you know, we're the best of the best, and that kind of loses their integrity by letting that happen. So that wouldn't be an option for me as a champion. And like, Shannon has, you know, promised me that she's never held anyone back from going to the UFC ever. And if the option is there, then she will let me go. But, you know, I am in contract, but she's told me that contract will dissolve, you know, if I get the call. But saying that, like, I still don't want to be like 10 days out from a title fight and then I leave. Like, I really wouldn't feel good about that at all, doing that to someone and doing that to someone that's matched up for a fight as well. So, you know, it's kind of like try and string along as long as you can without getting matched, without like blowing your chances of missing out on a fight while waiting, you know, like at a teenage disco for someone to knock you on the shoulder. That's what I feel like with the UFC is like, you know, just looking around me, waiting for someone to like pick me. So anyway, look, I'm not as worried about it as I was after March. You know, I literally did exactly what they said. I finished and I did it in Boston with an Irish flag on my back. I sponsored by Conor McGregor. He's tweeting about me. Jesus Christ. Other than OnlyFans, I'm not doing anything wrong here. You know, I'm not going to take it personally because it doesn't, you know, it really doesn't make sense if they don't want me. So it is what it is. And that's the fight game, I guess. But we'll know in the next few weeks. And I'm sure, you know, yourself and the boys in SevereMMA will be the first to know about it. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Appreciate that. We hope that news does come in a couple of weeks ahead. You know, talking like this now, Danny, and having talking to you from the very start of your professional career as well, it's like there was always somewhat a level of uncertainty surrounding you in terms of when you were with Bellator, you didn't really have that end goal of a division or a title. Obviously, you've found a little bit more certainty with Invicta, obviously, with the goal of getting the championship now. Like, is that what it feels like to you? Like seems like you're always kind of surrounded with a little bit of uncertainty on what's next or where you should be going, or do you feel that, or would I be just
Like,
exaggerating by saying it?
I think I think you guys in the media think things like not having a division in Bellator is what would like create uncertainty, but what creates uncertainty is yourself and your own self belief in yourself. Like when I was in Bellator, I knew what I was doing. I was getting a record and keeping my O, and then I was going to jump ship and try and get into the UFC. So I didn't care they had no division, because the worst thing that could have happened is if they had a division, and then I would have been tied up in Bellator and never have gotten out for the UFC. So I was quite happy where I was. But the uncertainty for me in my career was always, am I good enough? Am I going to make it to the UFC? Am I, what am I doing here? Like, I think I can do this, but I don't really, I don't really know. But that uncertainty is gone now, and yeah, definitely winning a world title fight for Invicta helped get rid of that uncertainty. Yes, it's nice that there's a title and all that. But yeah, it's more what the title did for my head is what got rid of the uncertainty. Like if I left Bellator back then, if I bet Stephanie Page, I was 6-0. My manager was telling me we were going to go straight to the UFC after that fight. And if that had happened, I know I wasn't ready. Like probably physically I was, and I was, doing great things in the gym, but mentally I still didn't know what I was doing. I didn't believe. So that's gone now. And losing those two fights and winning three fights in a row now and have two shiny belts looking at me. This was, the obstacle was the way for me. And I know if I go into the UFC now, number 15 is Michelle Waterson, and perfect. Let's fucking rock and roll. You
Get
know,
straight
the
in there.
the shadow box queen versus the Mac.
That's it. That
You
would be
know,
brilliant. Uh,
she can shadow box all she wants in front of me, but I tell you, I won't last too long. So
100%.
I believe that I can go into the top 15 straight away, and I can hang. And let's see what happens. But anyway, we'll wait for that call before we start calling people out.
That's it. But look, I would hope that uncertainty wouldn't come back if at the rare chance the UFC call doesn't come. You know what I mean? Because I think you've proved yourself enough in terms of how you persevered through tough times of your career, coming from behind to win fights. And then, like you mentioned, the two losses that you had there. We had talked during those two losses, which was a very low time for you. And there must have been a lot of uncertainty there, but you decided not to give up. It would have been easy to throw in the towel for you then, during off the back of those, obviously the knockout loss and then the really close one to that you had over in Europe as well. But you didn't. You persevered. You came through. And look, at the titles will come and go, and the wins and losses will come and go. But the inspiration that you're given to young women and to young fighters as well, not to give up, that's going to last a lifetime, Danny. And it must bring you some. Yeah, it must bring you some great pride to be able to offer inspiration to the young men and women coming through Relentless, your home gym, obviously at SPG as well, and just right across the board as well in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, it really does. And I hope I inspire people that like see a bit of themselves in me, and maybe aren't like the highlight reel people that when they walk into the gym aren't these people that, straight away everyone knows about and talks about. Like the people that just put their head down and work hard and believe that they can, do something great, like those kind of people, that it's ups and downs and it's not all plain sailing. That I hope I inspire some of them to keep going, if keeping going is the right thing to do for them. I hope they see that you don't need to be super talented and athletic or have this amazing background in whatever. You could have been riding horses for 20 years like me, and yeah, it would be cool if some people like that they get some inspiration from me, and that they think they can do it too. But we're not finished yet, and fingers crossed. With just a little bit of luck on my side, we could have a great few years ahead of us, and I'm excited thinking about that. And if it's not the UFC, I'll definitely become the first woman to win three Invicta belts in a row, and I won't stop talking about it.
I love it. Well, the journey has been fantastic so far, Danny. It's been a real pleasure for me. You know, you've always been gracious enough with your time with me. You've always been raw and open and honest. And that's something that I appreciate a lot as well. Being able to share these moments with you through interviews and everything like that. I hope the next couple of chapters are exciting ones. And I'm sure that they will be, whether they are with the UFC, whether they are with Invicta FC. I'm sure there's plenty of story to write, like you said, and I look forward to seeing it happening. And thank you so much for taking the time again today to speak with me.
Not at all, deadly. Thanks, Ian, and thanks for the coaching for the last fight. I'm looking forward to the next analysis we have ahead of us.
No problem. I'll send over the old fees there now in the post. You can expect it very soon. Or maybe if you want to send over the belt, it's up to yourself, Danny. Whatever you prefer. When you start getting too many belts to be able to handle, I can take a couple off of your shelf for sure. But I
tell you, my husband's going to want to be paid first anyway. That's for sure. He's been asking for commission for a long time.
Well, he gave you some good commission with that front teep to the face anyway. Hey?
I know. Oh, I swear that was like one of my happiest moments of my life. I wanted to turn around and say, "Did you see that? Did you see what I did?"
That's brilliant.
Anyway, yeah, it was great.
Danni McCormack, Invicta FC Strawweight champion. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Danny, and we'll talk to you soon.
Daddy, thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. Thank you.